prepare yourself for a list of 3 RPGs. So girly, so pink, so adorable that any self-respecting, red-blooded reptilian male may just have to grab a beer afterwards, chug it, and Dutch oven his nearest victim before feeling comfortable in his skin.
Those unfamiliar with the 90s cultural phenomena that was Sailor Moon might be immediately turned off by this title's soft pastel color palette and character roster comprised almost entirely of hormonal teenage girls. But to pass on Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon based on a superficial first impression would almost certainly be a mistake. Underneath all this raging femininity lies a fast-paced and exciting RPG with an absurd sense of humor. While the TV show was heavily censored for its American localization, the game, having been unofficially fan-translated, maintains the series' original maturity. The enemy designs often hint at the manga's titillating bondage aesthetic, and Sailor Moon sadly remains one of the few RPGs on any system to include homosexual protagonists. After all, it only makes sense, given the series' exploration of teenage sexuality. The storyline, which serves as both a great crash course in the who's who of the Sailor Moon universe and as nostalgic fan service for die-hard fans, is pretty decent as far as 16-bit RPGs go. A band of sexy Bizarro Scouts are changing the course of the future by altering events of the past, and you'll take control of the Sailor Scouts as they face off against resurrected villains from the 1st through 3rd seasons of the original show. There's so much story crammed into such a relatively short game that it's occasionally overwhelming, but thanks to the game's Cliff Notes-esque pacing, the plot will most likely have moved on to the next disaster du jour before you can really give it much thought. My biggest complaint is the bizarre difficulty curve. Any new region you enter will almost certainly introduce new enemies that immediately kick your butt in a single hit or two. But as soon as you can find a new accessory or eke out a level up, the tide will turn and you'll be mopping the floor with the beaten and battered corpses of your foes. All in all, the game manages to be adorable crazy fun, and obliterating hordes of enemies with your aggregation of teeny bopper goddesses is surprisingly satisfying. In Princess Maker 2, you play as the great hero who has been given charge of a naive and impressionable young girl. Her mind is a complete blank slate, and you are now responsible for providing her with the knowledge, skills, and life experiences that will shape her future. Will you mold your young daughter into a proper little princess or a depraved harlot? Despite its cute visuals and girly title, Princess Maker is surprisingly adult. Half the endings involve turning your young charge into a sexual deviant. But make no mistake, Princess Maker 2 is in no way, shape, nor form a hentai or porn title. It just caters to an especially perverse sense of humor. Honestly, one of the reasons I like it so much. You'll shape your child by enrolling her in classes, putting her to work, and sending her out on adventures, turn-based RPG style. Otherwise, Princess Maker is a money management sim. You'll have to juggle your limited finances. You, as a hero of the land, earn a measly yearly salary of 500 gold that does not stretch far. You'll have to feed your daughter, or not if you're into starving underage girls to fit into sexy lingerie, pay for her expensive education, buy the all-important adventuring gear, celebrate her birthdays, dress her in weather-appropriate clothing, take family vacations, and gamble on mysterious trinkets in order to unlock the game's better endings. Jobs raise your daughter's skills, usually at the expense of lowering others. Classes provide uncompromised benefits, but are costly. The best endings in the game require high stats in certain skills, but remember, it's all a juggling act. Trying to raise every skill is a quick path to a mediocre and boring future. You could describe Rhapsody's plot as a progressive feminist parody of the classic damsel in distress trope. Cornette is a love-struck teenager on a quest to rescue her beloved prince from the clutches of the devilishly sexy witch Marjorie and her all-female cast of evil minions.
As number 1. Oh yes, I am evil personified, so get down on your knees. And if you're ever graced by my beauty, you'll thank your lucky stars. Aren't I great? I'm amazing myself all the time.
But at its heart, Rhapsody is a bittersweet buddy comedy that examines the roles of childhood friendships and what we ultimately sacrifice in our transformation into adulthood.
We will say goodbye.
It's the unexpected depth of this narrative, coupled with the ridiculous humor and cheesecake musical numbers,
Take a bubble bath, even wash behind my ears.
that makes Rhapsody a must-play experience, despite its many shortcomings. Developed by the then obscure and now popular Nipponichi Software, or NIS for short, and published by the king of quirky Japanese gems, Atlas, Rhapsody was the first entry in the Marl series and is the predecessor for the Disgaea series of strategy RPGs. Obviously created on a tight budget, Rhapsody unabashedly recycles art resources, rendering dungeons confusing mazes of uncanny sameness. Seriously, these screens are different dungeons. And so are these. And these. There's 0 landmarks to orient your position aside from the occasional treasure chest, and all the rooms are identical. Luckily, the encounter rate is insanely low, and when a battle does trigger, you'll rarely be stuck in combat longer than a single round. Rhapsody's biggest problem is the complete absence of any challenge whatsoever. The non-fighter cornet can take on even endgame bosses one-on-one, rendering her adorable puppet army absolutely useless. It's this insulting lack of difficulty that adds to the stigma that Rhapsody is somehow a beginner's RPG intended for little girls. The best thing that can be said of Rhapsody's dungeons and battles is that the player can rush through them quickly to continue the absolutely amazing story sequences. So there you have it. Are you manly enough to brave the overwhelming femininity that oozes from these 3 classic titles like strawberry scented body wash? Is your testosterone levels high enough to withstand the unsaturated onslaught of pink? Are you a bad enough dude to rescue your boyfriend from the seductive witch Jiggle Tits? Well, are you?
I know that you're out there and I'm waiting for you. Cornet is my name and I'm a puppeteer too. With my puppet friends there's nothing that we can't do. They are there to help me make my dreams come true. And once you get to know them, they just might help you too.